The series between the San Diego Padres and Los Angeles Dodgers may not be over yet, but still, we got a whole roller coaster back and forth series from this weekend to recap, including Mr. Fernando Tatis Jr. being mic'd up, Joe Kelly being a coward, Blake Snell performing well again, and the biggest comeback of the season, and the Joe Musgrove injury we got to talk about. Oh yeah, we got a lot to talk about, guys. Let's get to it!
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno. That's Javiipeno. If you'd like to see me tweet about whatever I tweet about on there, or at LO_Padres, where you get a bunch of memes, updates, and occasionally some stats. Maybe I need to put more effort into that lately. Haven't been doing that as much. It's a little hard, but we'll be going over that as well. You can also check out the YouTube, Locked On Padres on YouTube, where we passed 1,000 subscribers recently, and I'm starting to wear different shirts more on each show to give you something to look forward to. I don't know. People like to listen to podcasts on YouTube sometimes, so go check that out, guys. Today's episode is going to be a pretty chunky one, so I'm not going to waste too much time. We're recapping the 3 games that happened this weekend between the Padres and the Dodgers in I don't want to say a must-win series, because the Padres are still going to be playing the Dodgers a few more times, but a pretty big series, especially since one of the games was on national TV. That's the one that we're going to recap first, yesterday's game. And just a lot happened, I think, this weekend. I think that it was actually a pretty substantive series in a lot of ways, and is a reminder of what the Padres are capable of, and also a reminder of what the Padres most often are. And such was the case in last night's game, nationally televised on ESPN, the second time I believe they've been nationally televised against the Dodgers, and they get their butts whooped. And one of the reasons is because Rich Hill had to start this game. He goes 3 innings, gives up 6 earned runs on 4 hits, walks 1, strikes out 4. Basically all the damage in this game done within the first 2 innings by the Dodgers. Freddie Freeman is the one who hits the big one, of course, the guy who is, competing very heavily with Rollercoaster Jr., which is actually pretty funny considering the history those two have, and the kind of like the weird unwritten rules that Freddie Freeman tried to enforce on him. It's pretty weird, and I don't even know if poetic's definitely not the right word, but pretty weird that it's between those two, it looks like, for the National League MVP, absent something crazy happening with another player that I haven't thought of. But Freddie Freeman hitting a 3-run shot in this one that made it 6-0. Also, Ahmed Rosario in the first inning homered, 2-run homer. He has 8 RBIs in 9 games for the Dodgers. He's been on fire. It's classic Dodgers. They just bring in some guy that they see something, and then they get him for nothing, and then they hope that he can actually produce. On top of the big moves they make, they also are pretty good at those smaller moves, I guess. And so far this weekend, it doesn't seem like the smaller moves have paid off fully for the Padres. Not totally. They did get a nice appearance from Scott Barlow in the previous series, but other than that, Ji-Man Choi, not a great weekend for him. Doesn't really do much. He's hitting 190 with the Padres so far, which, granted, again, it's 3 games that he's played, so don't look into the 190 all that much. But only gets, let's see, does he get a hit this weekend? No, he doesn't get a hit. He does draw 2 walks in the first game against the Dodgers. But other than that, not the greatest showing from Ji-Man Choi. But it's okay. He just got there. And as Don Orsillo so beautifully called him, G-Money on Friday's game. Gosh. It really is comforting to know that no matter what happens, we have Don and Mud just talking over the games. Him calling him G-Money was the highlight, personally, of the weekend for me, outside of the actual game. Just in general in life, Don calling him G-Money was hilarious. But yeah, in this game, the Padres score 2 runs, and they come from the 2 most unlikely sources, you would think. I think one of them is actually starting to become a likely source, and that's Gary Sanchez, St. Gary, who has been excellent. I talked about this last week, that the reason why he was on waivers and the reason why no one wanted him is because he made a lot of mistakes behind the plate, especially in New York, and his bat had declined as such that, yeah, he was probably a little bit better above average, but it didn't make up for the fact that he would have a lot of passed balls, he wouldn't be a good pitch framer, all that stuff. And, he's actually been pretty fantastic for the Padres. And I get why, I was one of those people, I wasn't critical of the move in the sense that I thought it was awful that they did it. I was just worried about what kind of sign that is. The fact that the Padres have to go out and take a chance on this guy who's been really kind of dreadful in a lot of ways behind the plate as a catcher because of how bad their catching situation was. I was fully in support of playing him over Austin Nola, who's now probably never going to see the field for the Padres again at this rate, right? I'm barring an injury. Hopefully nothing like that happens. But, when you look at Gary Sanchez overall, he's just better than what I think anyone could have hoped for in a lot of ways. I've mentioned before, the average stat line for catchers offensively is a 236 average, 303 on-base percentage, 390 slugging, 89 WRC plus. Gary Sanchez has been very much above that for the Padres, and he's just, it's incredible, actually, how good he's been. He's currently rocking a 117 WRC plus for the Padres. So that compared to 89, which is league average, he's been tremendous. The big part of it is that he's slugging like crazy. His batting average and on-base skills are still not very good, something that has declined basically every year of his career since 2017. His last great season. I think it was his second season with the Yankees. And he was incredible when he was at the Yankees. He had a 131 WRC plus at one point. He was great. But then the defense took its toll on him and he bounced back to being average. But even still, last year, I just mentioned 89 is the league average WRC plus for catches this year. This year he's got 117, and the defense behind the plate has been okay. It hasn't been hurting them. And I think that even when you look back in the day at some of his previous 10 years with the Twins and other organizations, who else was he with? He was with the Mets for a day, but you get my point that Gary Sanchez, he's just not that bad behind the plate. And I think that he deserves so much credit for the fact that ever since they brought him in, Snell caught fire. And I think that Snell was going to potentially get better regardless. But it is pretty cool. He's in the 46th percentile of pitch framing. Not the best in the world, but he's not really allowing that many pass balls. So that's really great. His pop time is good. Again, he's really, really good. Has been one of the more incredible waiver wire pickups. And dare I say, I think that he's in his own tier. The Alfaro GOAT. All right. Jorge Alfaro, we miss him. But Jorge Alfaro, in a lot of ways, was carried by the fact that he had 5 game-winning hits last year. You know what I'm saying? Gary Sanchez has just been so unbelievable. And what's even more unbelievable about Gary Sanchez is he's played 56 games for the Padres and already has 37 RBIs. Do you know how many Xander Bogaerts has? Who has been hitting at the top, maybe third, fourth for most of the season? Xander Bogaerts has 37 RBIs. In 106 games for the Padres. Again, I don't know what happened with this free agent class. By the way, Padres fans, remember, it's not just us. Trey Turner was hitting 8th for the Phillies the other day. Javier Baez can't swing at any pitch that's actually in the zone. He has to chase everything. He's been bad. Who's the other one? There's probably another. Carlos Correa has been horrid. And then there's all sorts of horrid free agents. We talked about this on the show before. It's not exclusive to the Padres. It's just insane. It's like the sport of baseball is punishing teams as I knock over Tatis for trying. That's what it feels like in a lot of ways. But yeah, just pretty nuts stuff. And Jake Cronenworth getting a home run. He actually has a pretty decent series in each game. He gets at least one hit in each game, goes 2 for 4 in this one with an RBI and a home run. And then he went 2 for 4 in Saturday's game as well with an RBI. And then 1 for 4 in Friday's game with a double and 2 runs scored. So nice kind of hitting stretch for Jake Cronenworth. I don't know if this is anything. I think he might just be on a hot streak. It's been basically since July 29th that he's been kind of getting a hit every single game, so he's got a nice hit streak going, but I don't know if it means anything. He's just been so bad for a long time. He seems to struggle with pitches up and inside. I don't know if he needs to tinker his swing. Maybe that's something that'll happen in the offseason, and I'm hoping. And he actually played a game at second base, specifically Sunday's game, so that was really nice to see. And G-Man Choi man first, so that was really cool. I love that. But that was likely because they put Manny Machado DH, which meant Kim goes to third base, so etc. So I'm not expecting that for the majority of games, but even still, it was really cool to see. So shouts to Jake Cronenworth. You are sometimes very cool. Very cool indeed. But you know what else is sometimes very cool, ladies and gentlemen? When we get a new ad sponsor for the show. Oh yeah, that's right. We got a new one today, guys. Dave. That's right, Dave. DAVE, kind of like the Hulu show, is the banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. When you download Dave, you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's extra cash account. advance the money you need with no interest, and then settle up later. Look, man, here's the thing. Dave helps you out. At some point, we all need some financial help. We need some assistance. We need some guidance in this very tumultuous and tribulation world. I can't speak. You know what I mean, though. Really crazy stuff, and finances can make you go crazy, as you heard me just now, go pretty insane, and they help you out. So go download Dave at dave.com/MLB. That's dave.com/MLB. You could get $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's really cool. Millions of people have already downloaded the app to make their finances easier. If you're in a pinch, go check that out. It helps you with managing everything. So shouts to Dave and shouts to them for sponsoring this podcast. One more time, though, that is go to dave.com/MLB and get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download. Dave, for terms, visit dave.com/legal. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Locked On Padres podcast, recapping and laughing about this whole podcast. Really crazy stuff going on here. Unfortunately, I didn't really recap the game as much, but there wasn't much to recap. Like I said, Padres unable to get enough offense, and they just got hit really early. I've criticized the team a lot this year that whenever they're down, they seem like they give up. In fairness, being down by 6 immediately is a lot for a lot of teams, but with this team, it is a little bit disappointing though that Lance Lynn just completely shuts down the team. Now, I will say this is classic Dodgers. Again, I already mentioned with Amed Rosario, the classic Dodgers here. Lance Lynn, who had a 6.47 ERA, I'm pretty sure, heading into, what's it called? Not this start, but heading into his first start with the Dodgers, have had 2 pretty solid starts. He strikes out a lot of guys. He's just been giving up too many runs. So when I heard that the Dodgers acquired him, I was not like horrified, but I was like, this is interesting because there is objectively one thing that Lance Lynn is good at, and that's making people miss. So maybe they know what to bring in. Maybe they know he has a strikeout stuff. Let's just lower the runs a little bit to a little bit more respectable count. And that's a guy that we can use and probably get for almost nothing, which they did. So again, classic Dodgers moves. But don't worry, folks, because we had ourselves a delight, a treat, an absolute majestic, dare I say, history repeating itself moment on Saturday night with the Padres playing the Dodgers. They win this one 8-3, and let me tell you, they were not winning this game for most of the time. Will Smith getting a home run to start things off for the Dodgers against Blake Snell. His final line, by the way, 5 innings, 3 earned runs on 4 hits. He walked 4, which was the bad thing, but struck out 8 as usual. Blake Snell struck out as many people as possible. Again, his big problem is the free passes, but a pretty good start, all things considered. It just started off rough for Snell with Will Smith taking him deep. And Will Smith, I guess, just hits really well against this guy. I don't have numbers in front of me between batter matchups between Will Smith and Blake Snell, but you might remember a couple seasons ago when Blake Snell had like a near no-hitter going. I don't know if it was a no-hitter, but he was going shutout through like 7 innings. I think Jay Stingler at the time decides to keep him in for some reason, and then it blows up in the Padres' face as he gives up the tying home run to Will Smith. Now, that was the fault of the offense, don't get me wrong, but maybe this guy just hits well against Blake Snell, so that's annoying. Kike Hernandez ends up getting a sac fly. Freddie Freeman drives in a run, and it's 3-1 at one point. Should mention, though, Manny Machado hits an absolute bomb in this game off of, who was it that he hit it off of? Ryan Yarbrough. Absolute bomb from Manny Machado. Watched it go. Oh, it was glorious. It was glorious. But the Padres are down 3-1, heading into, let's see here, the bottom of the 8th inning. And everyone remembers the playoffs last year. And this was basically exactly that. Now, there's a lot of different things that happen here, right? So Juan Soto gets a single. It's counted as a single. But Kike Hernandez messes up trying to get the ball to first base and throws it away, allowing more runs to score, Ha-Seong Kim and Gary Sanchez specifically. And then Manny Machado rips an actual single. He's pumped up. You saw the pictures on Padres social media. He was pumped about that. Jake Cronenworth gets a single as well. He's pumped. And then Trent Grisham gets in on the fun. Eventually, in a 7-run 8th inning, it is easily the best comeback win that the Padres have had in months. It's against their rival Dodgers. You can see and feel the electricity in the air. And it's kind of a reminder that, look, any Dodgers fans that tell you that it's not a rivalry, it's actually complicated. So on one hand, is it a rivalry in terms of accomplishments and like both teams having the same level of success? Not really. I will, however, say that the Dodgers don't have like infinitely more success than like every team in the league, because I'm pretty sure like the Giants, like the Cardinals, like the Astros have won more World Series than them, while I would wager that they are basically the Peyton Manning of MLB franchises, which is Hall of Fame caliber. Like, they are on an absolute tear and in a remarkable run, winning this many division titles, being this consistently good every year. But they've also bloated in the postseason a lot. And I think that sometimes the Dodgers fans get a little bit too high on themselves with those things. And as a result, you get the whole it's not a rivalry stuff. And I think that even if a rivalry is a nascent one, even if it's starting to sparkle recently because of the rise of the Padres in particular, it still counts. And the biggest thing, the second part of this is, yeah, again, the Padres are outclassed by the Dodgers in a lot of ways, a lot of very important ways, make no mistake about that. Even if they only won in the truncated season, it's still winning. One championship. That the second thing to bring up is you can tell, you can feel the energy when these two play, particularly at Petco Park, in my experience anyway. I know the Dodgers fans are passionate as well, but the games at Petco are always nuts, especially when the Padres play well. And you can just feel it. You can see Machado celebrating. You can see Cronenworth. You can see Kim. You can hear the announcers. And here comes Kim as well. Like, you hear all of that. So my response to that is about the rivalry thing is it's clearly there. I talked with Jeff Snyder of Locked On Dodgers about this, where it was like the Giants and Dodgers, that's rivalry in terms of excellence and who has the most accomplishments. Those two have done so much the last 10, 15 years in baseball. But with the Padres and Dodgers, you feel the energy. When the Giants and Dodgers play each other, you don't get you just don't get the same energy, I don't think. And I think you saw that on Saturday night. Yeah, it's still alive. These guys really care about playing this team. You can tell. You can tell last year that they really cared. And it's awesome. And you love to see it. It's great for the sport when these two teams, I think, can play at this level. And they've just been, it's been a little bit hit or miss sometimes. You either get an iconic kind of moment game like this, where the Padres make a crazy comeback, or you unfortunately get what you had on Sunday. And I'm not just saying this because the Padres lost, but it's 6 runs in the first couple innings. You kind of ended at that. It's just not a classic type of game or anything like that. But look, I loved it. Nick Martinez comes into this game. The Padres bullpen in general, very, very good. Steven Wilson, Nick Martinez, and Ray Kerr kind of close out the game for the Pods. It was really great. Yes, they got pretty lucky with the Kike Hernandez weird throw. I don't know if he was going to get Soto at first anyway, but the weird throw did obviously give us some extra runs, which was absolutely electric, and I loved it. Just really great stuff. 2 for 4 day for Manny. He gets 3 ribbies as well. 2 for 4, like I said, from Cronenworth. Kim goes 1 for 4 with a walk. Tatis doesn't get a hit in here. Doesn't really do much. Look, the thing about Tatis is that he's streaky. And I think that some people have been asking me, and some people are wondering, what's going on with Tatis. And I think the best way to explain is just that he's pressing, that he's super aggressive at the plate, and he's been just walking at an insignificantly lower rate. He's in the 4th percentile in walk rate this year. Last time in 2021, his MVP season, he was in the 80th percentile, right? He was able to draw walks. And don't get me wrong, he's an aggressive player. Even at his best, he chased a lot, right? Let me be very clear, he did chase a lot. But it's gone up this year. 41st percentile in chase rate in 2021 and 22nd percentile this year. This year, I was wrong about the walk rate, right? He was in 37th percentile walk rate, while previous years 81st percentile in his top 3 MVP season. So he's still hitting the ball hard. So that's the best sign, right? That he's still hitting the ball well, and he's not striking out at a rate that's completely unsustainable. It's just that he's not seeing enough pitches and he's not getting enough walks. He's not being patient. He swings at some pitches that you just can't do much with. And because he's so talented, sometimes they go through the infield or he can hit them, right? But again, I just think that the only thing about Tatis you got to know is where he's currently standing. He's just a little streaky. I'm hoping that he's entering the good phase, because I believe he does hit a home run this weekend. He hits one on Friday specifically. Does he? Hold on. Give me 1 second. Did he hit? He didn't. Okay, so I think I'm thinking of Thursday, but you get my point. I'm hoping that he can kind of, catch fire soon, because that's what the Padres need for him to go on another tear. But again, hey, I remember the offseason. I warned y'all. I thought that Fangraphs article was totally valid. I thought that it was absurd for Padres fans to be attacking the poor writer who wrote it. This year, he's got a 118 WRC plus. He's still got a good F4, 3.4. He's going to finish in like the top 20 probably. But a lot of that is because of his defense, and that's a splendid surprise. He has a career WRC plus of 144. Every season before this year, above 150. So again, he's having a down season, but I wouldn't freak out. I would not freak out. He's still hitting the ball very hard. He's still slow. He's got 19 home runs. He's got 17 stolen bases. He's going to be fine. It's just that for this first year, taking him a little bit more time to get fully there at the plate. Taking a little bit more time. But hey, it's okay. It's okay, ladies and gentlemen. It's all right. We are good here. You know why? Because Tatis is super talented, and we love having him on the team, even when he's not necessarily hitting on all cylinders. But speaking of not hitting on all cylinders, ladies and gentlemen, we got to talk about Friday's game, where I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. Just a little bit of a rant as a treat for you guys, because I haven't done this in a while, and it's because it is the player that I hate most in baseball. And it is not anyone on the Astros. It's somewhat has something to do with the Astros, but it is not someone on the Astros, not someone on the Dodgers. It is Joe Kelly and his antics on Friday that maybe I've been reading a little bit too much into, but I really can't stand him, and I'm in the mood to go on a rant before we talk about Joe Musgrove. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, let me take a quick second, all seriousness, to talk to you about BetterHelp. Folks, here's the thing. Everybody needs help. I don't care who you are. It's important to go get some mental, sort of therapy for yourself. You can't always just, when you're dealing with so many decisions, with your career, with relationships, you have to take time for yourself and treating yourself and finding things that align with your values and can help you achieve your goals or achieve your peace of mind, whatever it is. And look, it's not easy, right? Like, you can't just do this at the drop of the hat. I've had some mental issues as well last year, and let me tell you, going to therapy really helps a lot. So go check that out for sure. But let me tell you, BetterHelp, they're here to give you, some better help. There you go. So it's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule, which is great. You don't want to have something that feels like a little bit of a, it's overbearing or something that you have to just constantly try to make room for. They can fit your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch them at any time for no additional charge. And don't feel bad about switching. Anybody who's thinking of doing this, I've switched therapists as well before. It's really just about finding the right match for you. Again, let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. Remember, that's BetterHelp, spelled the usual way, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. And everybody, we're talking right now. We're back, lady. We're back. We're talking about Friday's game between the Dodgers and the Padres. One that does not go the Padres' way. Really, 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 really bad game in a lot of ways. It's the first game, against the Dodgers. They did have that incredible comeback. It's just unfortunate that they were unable to start off on the right foot. They lose Friday's game 10-5. And what's crazy is you might be thinking, oh God, did Darvish have another bad start again? He actually didn't. He was very, very solid in this game. And Darvish is going to need to be solid, especially with some of the injuries the Padres have had. And he was in this game. 7 innings, only 5 hits that amounted to 2 runs. Didn't walk anybody, which is nice. And 4 strikeouts over, let's see here, 82 pitches. Should Bob Melvin have kept him in the game? I mean, it's not crazy, the idea of that, right? Like, it's not crazy, especially considering, the Padres were up 3-1. Maybe you want to keep him in there, but I'm not totally against that because he was showing some signs of maybe getting hit a little bit. The Padres score here because of a passed ball, wild pitch when G-Man Choi was batting, and then Luis Campusano, the Hive, he also gets an RBI in this game. Trent Grisham gets a single, and everything's going all well and good until the top of the 8th inning. So literally a bizarro world version of Saturday's game where instead, literally the exact same thing. We were up 3-1 against the Dodgers, and then the 8th inning is when they absolutely blow up. Obviously, no, I will say, not totally exact. Outman had scored and made it 3-2 heading into the 8th, but still, Padres bullpen just absolutely blowing up again. This has been a common theme, but this time it was Robert Suarez, who heading into this game was rocking a 1.5 ERA. I was talking about how he was worrying me a little bit because he wasn't getting any strikeouts. In fact, he only had 2 heading into this game over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 innings. That's really bad. He wasn't striking guys out, and that's usually his thing. Like, he throws gas. There's a reason why they extended him so much. He goes into this game, only gets 2 outs, allows 5 earned runs on 3 walks and 2 hits. Just an absolute disaster of an appearance for Robert Suarez. And it drove me nuts because it feels like there's always a new way, a new player that blows it in this bullpen of ours, absent Josh Hader, right? Like, it's just been really, really frustrating all year. And I've talked about it before. The Padres bullpen, even when it was the 3rd best bullpen ERA in baseball, when you look at some other stats like win probability added and you look at high leverage scenarios, during that time that they had a low ERA, their ERA spiked when they were in high leverage or more impactful situations. So it shows you that the Padres bullpen isn't the worst. There is still something to be said for if you're down by a lot, that they're able to keep the lead to a more manageable amount so you could potentially come back, and that's where the offense failing comes in. But let me tell you, Padres bullpen has been really rough to watch. And I mentioned Scott Barlow earlier. He comes into this game, gives up 3 and 2/3 of an inning. Felt like it didn't even matter at that point. You know what I mean? That he came in, but still worth bringing up that Musgrove comes in. He's the only one that gets off kind of clean. And then Scott Barlow gets lit up. He now has an 11.57 ERA with the Padres because he went 1 and 2/3 and got 3 strikeouts, or he gets only 2/3 and gave up 3 runs. So really, really bad showing from the Padres bullpen. And I believe I forgot who it was that tweeted basically that Yu Darvish only needed 82 pitches to get the first 21 outs, and it took 5 relievers and like 60 pitches to get through the last 7. So that just shows you that the Padres bullpen really blew it, and it's unfortunate. Don't get me wrong. There's kind of I don't know exactly how you fix this. I just think that they don't have necessarily the talent. Luis Garcia has been talked about a lot this year, but I think that this is a little bit something that doesn't have to do with roster building, in my opinion anyway. This is just the team not playing well. I don't think Tim Hill, Luis Garcia, Tom Musgrove, Josh Hader, Robert Suarez, and Drew Pomeranz, and whoever else is, did I mention Musgrove already? I don't think that having these, Nick Martinez is the other one. I just don't know if that's AJ Preller's fault that those guys, with the exception of Hader, all have gotten significantly worse in high leverage situations. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, Preller deserves a lot of criticism, but it's hard for me to pin that all on him. You know what I mean? Especially when you see that they do well in not high leverage situations, right? Like, they don't get killed like some other bullpens in the league. But when they have a lead, man, this Padres team can really croak it sometimes. And it's really annoying because every time they have a lead, you're just like, close runs. I mean, you need this team because this team hasn't been able to score much. You're hoping, all right, we got some superstars in the lineup. Just get us like 4 runs. If we have that much of a lead, we should be fine. But it's just not been the case. I think Tatis mentioned this when he was mic'd up yesterday's game. Mentioned, we haven't been consistent. When the hitting fails, the pitching's supposed to pick it up. When the pitching fails, the hitting's supposed to pick it up. And that just hasn't happened. I thought that was really well said. But hey, that's what happens. The Padres lose 10-5 to start off this series. The comeback was nice and everything, but unfortunately, nothing happened. Now, I just want to talk really quickly about Joe Kelly. In Friday's game, there was a moment in which Joe Kelly kind of throws a little bit inside on Tatis and he drops the bat, which is something that he always does. I think he wants to just, I don't know if that's just a quirk of his, but he drops the bat maybe because he doesn't want it to hit the bat, or he's just so worried about his hands because that's a really bad place to get hit. So he drops that. And then the next pitch, Joe Kelly goes inside on him, very much inside, closer to his face. And then after that, he strikes him out, and you can read through lip reading that he says an effing, you know what, and the B word. I can't say this. We are a family-friendly podcast, B-I-T-C-H, an effing B-I-T-C-H. I hate this. And I've hated Joe Kelly for a long time. Because Joe Kelly, to me, is a reminder of why I think that the softest people that we have on this planet are men in general and then Major League Baseball pitchers. Soft isn't the right word, just the most cowardly, and it stays the same, men and baseball pitchers. I've hated this guy for a long time, and I actually got into a little bit of a Twitter back and forth with my boy Carlos from San Diego, CBS 8 San Diego, on Twitter, where he was basically like, I don't think he did it intentionally. I think he's just wild. And this is a common retort that I've gotten over the years because of my hate for Joe Kelly is that, well, he's wild. Like, look at these photos of him destroying windows and blah, 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 blah by accident and whatnot. And, I agree with that, Carlo. Don't get me wrong. That's a fair point. But I can't definitively say that Joe Kelly wasn't doing it on purpose because of his rap sheet, because of his resume. This is a guy that I've seen before throw at someone intentionally because they took a timeout that he felt was too late. Like the batter called time. A little bit too late for his liking. I predicted it. You can ask my one friend Mike. I was sitting with him watching the game. I said he's going to hit him next pitch, not watch. And he does. He had the famous fight against the Yankees. He always is hitting guys who break some sort of unwritten rule or, in some cases, have been caught cheating. In the case of Fernando Tatis Jr. So that's why it's hard for me to believe that this wasn't intentional. And he seems to have a vibe to him that, like, the ones who are weak are the ones who are scared that you almost hit him with a pitch. I got no love for the Astros. You know what I'm saying? I got no love for the Astros. I get it. But I remember a couple years ago, so this is 2020, when he threw at Carlos Correa's head like 3 times or multiple times. I forgot how many times. And then he strikes him out. And then after the at-bat, Carlos is just like, come on, man. And then, of course, the famous, smug little face meme is born. A hilarious picture, and I'd love to use it if it wasn't Joe Kelly. And I felt like an insane person at the time. Because my thing was like, look, I'm not saying that the Astros didn't have something coming, especially because none of those players involved were suspended. I imagine there was union stuff, blah, blah, blah. We don't have to get into that. But they weren't suspended, bottom line. So, what did you think was going to happen? That being said, I just didn't like how everyone was loving Joe Kelly for that because you threw at his head, dude. And Carlos Correa that season, now people don't pay attention to this stuff because that's how this works. Everyone just likes to latch on to the hate bandwagon. But Carlos Correa that year had been hit multiple times, and he didn't react in any way. He just kind of took it. He was like, yeah, I mean, I hate these guys, and we're going to prove them wrong, but also, like, I can't do much about this. And I just don't understand why Joe Kelly throwing at his head intentionally, and yes, I think it is intentional. I refuse to believe that a guy who only, and very specifically, that there's always these guys with cheating or unwritten rules, those are the people he just happens to lose control over. You're a Major League Baseball pitcher, guys. I'm pretty sure he is not accidentally multiple, like 5 times that I can think of off the top of my head, losing control and intentionally hitting someone. Losing control and throwing it away from the plate, throwing it up middle or something like that, throwing it down. Okay. But you're telling me he loses control so much that he keeps accidentally hitting or getting close to hitting these guys and then reacts in a way where he's mocking them for being scared? I remember, R.I.P., rest in peace, Yordano Ventura, former pitcher for the Royals, when he threw at Josh Donaldson, I think it was Josh Donaldson intentionally at the head, and then he was like making fun of him for being scared. And I was like, this is why this is the second most cowardly species we have. You're throwing a baseball from 60 feet away, and you have all your teammates right behind you. In the case of Carlos Correa, you make that face when you're walking back to the dugout. Your Dodgers dugout in this case. It is so easy. Look, what am I going to do? Talk crap to deer as I shoot them from 100 miles away with a sniper rifle? Wow, yeah, that's real brave of me. You know what I mean? Defenseless animal. Congratulations. Weird analogy, but you get my point. And I've hated this guy for a long time, and I really hate that people keep celebrating players like this just because it's people who quote-unquote deserve it. And I've talked before about PEDs versus off-field stuff. I really, 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 really wish people would show this same energy for off-field bad matters of other players that they do. You don't want to do that? Fine. Then I wish that we just wouldn't do this in general. And unlike Carlos Correa, Tatis served a suspension. All right? What are you trying to prove here? So again, I really don't like that pitchers have always thought that they are so tough, so strong, because they could throw at guys from 60 feet away, and they have a bunch of teammates behind them anyway. That's whack. Now, there was a fight this weekend that wasn't cowardly. Both of them dropped their Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez. I imagine you guys have seen it. They squared up. Like, that wasn't no cheap shot or anything like that. I don't know what the reason for it happening was, but that's why, to me, I hate this. I hate this being in baseball, and someone's going to get hurt, and people have gotten hurt before. And I'm not saying that I know for sure Joe Kelly threw at him intentionally, but given his resume, given how he is, given the jerk picture that he often ends up acting like, I cannot definitively say that he wasn't throwing intentionally. And that's why I hate Joe Kelly. Because for so long, people praised this guy for the Astros thing and because he whoever it was, Chad Curtis. No, I forgot the Yankees player that got into the fight with him. And I'm like, cool. So you can throw from that far away and you have all your teammates behind you. And that makes you tough now? I've never understood why we think that this is cool for pitchers. I think it's cowardly. I think it's weak. And I think it's stupid. And I remember Manny Machado getting hit back in the day with the Orioles by, I believe it was Chris Sale, and him saying, well, why? But if I run up there with a bat, that's the worst thing. But they can just take 3 pot shots at my face. Like, what's going on here? How is that like? And I'm like, yeah, I agree. I'm not saying someone gets hit in the back or whatever that I'm freaking out, especially if it's someone who, in the case of Carlos Correa, that they cheat or whatever. But I still remember that. And I was very disappointed. People who see the world the same way I do, a lot of people, we all hate, the same sort of baseball teams. We hate unwritten rules. Everyone was praising Joe Kelly when he hit Carlos Correa, or almost hit him, like multiple times in the head. And I was like, guys, don't you think we maybe have our priorities a little bit out of whack? If we're rooting for this guy to get hit in his skull with like a 97-mile-per-hour fastball? Really? Really, guys? And he's weak? Correa's the weak one? For being like, what the heck? Oh, but no, Joe Kelly's the tough one because he can make a smug, funny meme face as he walks back to the safety of his dugout. Okay. So I've never liked that, and for that reason, it's why I would love nothing more than if Tatis took him deep somehow. I don't know if that'll happen, but I just felt like I had to get that rant out of the way. Last thing we got to talk about, and I imagine people are going to be upset with me hating Joe Kelly, but whatever. Feel free to leave your comments. I'm probably not changing my mind on this. Correa, Yankees, Tatis, he's done this too many times, and I refuse to believe it's just a lack of control. Last thing I want to talk about is Joe Musgrove. Unfortunately, this is probably the biggest news overall of the weekend, and it's probably dumb that I saved it to end the podcast, but what can I say? I am in a weird mood after this weekend. Not a bad mood, though. I'm hanging in there. It was a good weekend. Shout out to the Ninja Turtles movie. It was good. This is really bad, obviously. I do think that they aren't at like a DEFCON 4 when it comes to starting pitching, but due to some shoulder inflammation, I believe. Let me just check really quickly. He's expected to be sidelined for at least 3 weeks. He's being shut down because tests revealed right shoulder inflammation. I'm reading from Inside the Padres at Fan Nation. After not selling Blake Snell or Josh Hader at the headline, the Padres are locked in at fighting for a wild card spot and secured a spot in the postseason this year. And securing a spot in the postseason this year. General Manager A.J. Preller talked to the media today announcing the injury news, but also with votes of confidence in the additions and returning arms coming to Petco. And quotes, injuries are never easy, but we do feel like with Rich, with Michael Wacha coming back, with Nick Martinez having some flexibility, Pedro Avila stepping up and throwing well, we've got some depth and we're going to use it. The loss of Joe Musgrove means that trade deadline addition Rich Hill will be relied on to fill in the big shoes left by the 10-3, 3.05 ERA veteran. This is tough. And I think the next line kind of sums up my feelings about Rich Hill, which is he's 43 years old and has pitched a lot of baseball and a lot of big games. If there was a player to rely on to eat innings and keep the Padres in every game, it is him. I think that's true. Now, unfortunately, he did get lit up this weekend, right? But this injury hurts, but it is true. Getting Michael Wacha back is going to be big. And I think the bigger thing to look into for this is whether or not Yu Darvish can have a strong finish to an otherwise pretty bad season for Yu Darvish. If he can have a strong finish, that would really make up for the lack of Musgrove. So at this point, Musgrove is basically a player that we have to look at as, if you make the playoffs, you're in business. Because you'll have Wacha, you have Snell, you have you have Musgrove. That's when it gets really interesting. Then potentially Darvish, obviously. That's when it could get interesting. But for right now, I think that the Padres probably are looking at not having Joe Musgrove back for the rest of the regular season. Maybe they could have him in the postseason, but hey, look, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to treat this lightly. This stinks. This is really bad. Musgrove has been a bit of an Iron Man in his own way. Not Ripken level, but he's still been pretty consistent and pretty bit there for the team the whole time. And it's a huge blow because he'd been on fire. Him and Snell both were a two-headed hydra that had been murdering opposing batters for like a month and 2 months now. Like, they've been incredible. So this is a really bad injury. And again, I think Musgrove deserves a lot of credit because this looked like it was a lost season, getting hurt with the weight room incident to start things off. And now this, it's really rough. So again, I'm just hoping that the Padres' depth can hopefully help them out here. It's going to be tough, though, because we've seen that they've gotten really mixed results from starting pitching. Rich Hill getting blown up. I should say mixed results from their depth when it comes to starting pitching. Rich Hill getting blown up on Sunday, you saw. Hopefully Pedro Avila can be all right. Hopefully Nick Martinez can figure things out. Hopefully Rich Hill can just not be disastrous every time. But I wouldn't hold my breath. This is one of those reasons why I thought like maybe the Padres should have considered selling. But hey, look, it's a really bad injury, and you just gotta hope that the Padres hitting and the rest of the team comes through. You should not fall apart completely after losing Musgrove. At least in my opinion. And even if they do and they aren't able to score, that's been the same thing with the team all year long. So you got to look at the offense. You got to look at other guys like AJ Preller mentioned. Maybe they'll do some piggyback sort of starts with Avila. Maybe they'll use Martinez sometimes or whatever. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what Melvin and company do in regards to managing their starting pitching and pitching in general with the absence of Musgrove. But it is worth keeping in mind. I don't think you remember that if the Padres like fall apart because of this, that is like a lot to do with Preller and management and not having enough guys that could come up and be successful. Ryan Weathers didn't work, Adrian Morejon didn't work. Ryan Weathers just gave up like 6 runs for the Marlins the other day, like that didn't work. But what you got to look at this is the offense really needs to step up. You got to pay to your back of your baseball cards. You need Xander Bogaerts to step up. You need Cronenworth to step up. You need them to just be good, right? You need them to be better. And I think that there's optimism for that happening. I still like the Cooper and G-Man Choi acquisitions. I'm hoping to see more of that, more open to seeing more platoon matchups, which they haven't done yet with Cooper, batting them against righty-lefty. I'm hoping to see more of that. But this Musgrove injury really hurts, man. It really does. And I'm hoping that they can do a little bit better. Do a little bit better in that regard, especially when it comes to hitting. Which is something the Padres have been really not so great at given what their roster has. So hopefully they can do that, and hopefully they win today's game to at least even the series before, I forgot who the heck they play next, before the Padres play their next game. 2 games set against the Mariners, and then 3 games set against the Diamondbacks, then 3 against Orioles, 4 against Diamondbacks. It's a crazy, crazy week. Next few weeks, I should say. The Mariners are on fire, so again, this is it, guys. If you think the Padres are going to make a run, it probably has to happen now. Or at least we have to see more of a sign of it happening now. But ladies and gentlemen, that's it. I talked a lot on today's episode by myself, too. Usually the length of these pods are the length of time that I talk with Millard, but I guess I spoke a lot about Joe Kelly. What are you going to do? Hopefully you guys enjoyed all of that. Thanks again for listening to the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, or at LO_Padres. And until next time, which I believe we're going to be talking with Aram Layton. Missed Friday's episode. My apologies about that. We're going to be talking about some prospect stuff. We got the crossover with Millard planned. All sorts of good stuff. We'll be recapping tomorrow's game as well. Probably going to do a Ha-Seong Kim tribute. All sorts of good stuff. So don't worry. Until that next time, though, stay safe. And, of course, stay faithful. My Friday Faithful homies. Take care.